You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda, and this is the Unwritable Rant podcast, episode 125. I am doing things a little bit differently on this episode. Instead of my usual boozy storytelling, today I'm going to be talking to comedian Bert Kreischer. And again, a little different. Normally I start this show off by talking about whatever bourbon I'm drinking, but today I'm going to skip all that. And I'll tell you, if I am breezing past the booze, it's for a damn good reason. And that would be Bert. Bert is a stand-up comedian and host of the podcast The Bertcast. You may know him as The Machine, and you may have seen him hosting reality shows like Hurt Bert, Bert the Conqueror, and Trip Flip. He also wrote a memoir, the book Life at the Party, Stories of a Perpetual ManChild. Now, I went into this interview already a fan of Bert's, and I am coming out knowing that this guy is just as cool offstage as he is on. Bert is just flat out awesome. And we talk about everything in this conversation. He goes into some details about his new comedy special, a new sitcom project he's working on, and we definitely go deep into comedy, which I just love. So kick back, y'all. I hope you enjoy this interview with Bert Kreischer. Welcome to the Unwritable Rant, Bert.
Thank you.
So I got to say, I love your podcast. You remind me a little bit of an informal David Steinberg in a way. Just in the way that you talk about comedy and how you break it down, but it's so informal and casual. I think it's genius.
That's so interesting you say David Steinberg, because I met David Steinberg. We worked on a project together for like a TV company or something. And me and him clicked immediately. Like, we really clicked. And he was like, hey, if you ever want me to direct a project of yours, let me know. I'd love to. And I was like, hell yeah. And we ended up having lunch, and he tried to get me into transcendental meditation. He's really big into TM. I'm such a flake. I was like, yeah, I'm into it. And then I signed up for it and showed up to the wrong day. It was, but that's an interesting reference, because I love David. I think he's great.
I love the insight that he offers, and I feel like I get the same thing when I listen to you talking. You've got this great perspective on comedy.
I mean, thank you. I'll start with thank you. But I think, and I battle with this a tad bit. I'm a fan first. There are people that in this business, I won't name names, but that I think got into comedy because they feel like it was their gift to the world. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there's so many talented. Like, I'll say a guy who's a fan also, so I'm not shitting on him, and he's a friend of mine. But Demetri Martin is a gift to comedy. He's a brilliant writer. He's a brilliant mind. He is a gift to comedy. And I think Demetri probably realizes that to some extent, that he brings something to the business that wasn't there before. Me, I'm different. I came in as a legit fan. Like, I love giggling. I'm the lowbrow moron who loved to laugh to the point where you almost threw up and you couldn't breathe and you thought you were dying. I love that to this day. I think that my insight in comedy is just really being into it. I love it. I really love it. One time I remember I had a TV show that was greenlit, and my wife was like, you must be really proud. I remember where we were. We were on Colfax and Moore Park. And my wife was like, you must feel really proud. And I said, no, the thing I'm proudest of is that I'm a stand-up comedian, that I've earned my way into an elite group of people who have elevated senses of humor, and I get to enjoy that, and I consider them friends. And so I sit backstage with comics. I mean, I've sat backstage. One of my greatest joys in the world was sitting backstage with Norm Macdonald right before the election and listening to Norm Macdonald dissect Bill Clinton. It was me,
God.
Joe Rogan, me and Joe Rogan, and Norm was, and we were like looking at, and Joe's a fan. Joe loves comedy, and we just sat there giggling so hard and making eye contact. Like, when you when you were a kid and you got invited to the cool party with your friend and you guys just kept making eye contact that only you had the secret. You're like, I can't believe we're here, dude. Those are my favorite moments. So I think if anything, and I do sometimes talk too much comedy on my podcast, but I love it. I really, 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 really love it.
Well, I think that's so obvious just in the way that you deliver your comedy yourself. I mean, you've got this personal touch to it, but it's really straightforward and honest. How did you know as a comedian that you'd found your voice?
I still haven't found it, to be dead honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm getting closer. I have one joke that I think is my voice in my new special that I'm shooting in a month. Sometimes I feel like I'm very candidly, sometimes I feel like I'm imitating people, doing what I know works. And then every now and then you get something where you're like, oh, this is my voice. Like, this is how I do comedy. I think it's always a struggle. I think all of us, no one ever has it figured out. My goal, I think, in comedy, especially with this special, and then I'm a student of specials. I love watching specials. I love watching comedy. Bill Burr kind of changed my perspective, and I'm lucky enough to be friends with him. So I got to ask him, what were you doing? You know, it really is like, you know, knowing Jordan and saying, hey man, when it comes to the buzzer and you're about to take the shot, what are you thinking of? And what Bill said to me is, you know, I try to do something new, try to change it up. I try to, you know, explore different things. If I find I'm not doing something good one special, I try to do it better in the next special. He had this joke about adopting a soldier kid and a kid that worked in a sweatshop. and it blew me away. And I thought, oh yeah, I got to challenge myself. Like I said, I don't know if I've found my voice. I feel like I'm doing this next special I'm doing literally is like 2 jokes. That's it. And I feel I'm insecure about it because I go, I'm just talking about 2 things. This whole special.
2 things.
It flows and it's fun and it's different and it's not the same joke over and over again. I only have like a couple times where I feel like, oh yeah, there we go, Bert. You're getting in your groove. That's it. Good job. You know. Everything else, I feel like I'm still struggling. I don't know, but I think I personally think every good comic will always feel that way. You know, those guys that feel like they have it dialed in. I got this. I nailed it. I'm always like, bro, I saw your set. It's not the best.
Well, and I think it goes that way for anything. I mean, even me as a writer, like I always have to best myself. I can't just rely on the fact that I had one good piece.
Yeah. When I wrote my book, I didn't realize, I always considered myself a great writer because I could write good stand-up. But when I wrote my book, I realized how far away I was from a good writer and how much I imitated in every sentence. Either my 2 biggest pulls were David Sedaris or Ernest Hemingway.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. I mean, how do you overcome, you know, kind of having that in your head?
You just have to go with it. I said to Brian Callen one time, I heard him on a podcast, and he said something so brilliant about dolphins. I don't know what the joke was. It wasn't even a joke. It was a thought. Immediately from that point, I wrote a joke about myself with dolphins. And then immediately I had to reach out to Brian and be like, yo, man, I just got to ask if you have a dolphin joke, and I got to run this by you because you're the one that made me have that thought, and I don't want to, like, step on anything you're working on, but I listened to you say this, and now I'm thinking this. So here's where I am, and I need to make sure we're clear. And Brian was like, no, man, that's part of the thing. Part of the thing is you hear people say stuff, and you have an idea. That's how you come up with jokes. He's like, it's yours, man. Whatever you say, that's yours. Yeah, so I think part of it's being cool, and it's very easy. I think I'm under the radar a little bit in that, you know, I'm not Bill or Joe or Marin or these guys, but I think it's just being cool with allowing yourself to fail or suck a little bit and knowing it and going, you know, I'm a little, like I said to someone the other day in the car, I said, he says, oh, this guy's so hacky. And I said, yeah, I'm hacky too. Like I get into hack premises. I get into hack bits. I find myself very lazy on stage where I get a joke up and running. It's like spinning plates and I go, oh, we got it. We're good. I think the real goal is when you get ready for a special to record those sets, find out where your laziness is, and then really sit with yourself and go, what is Bert? Like I have a joke. By the way, I apologize if I'm rambling, but
no, have at it.
I have a joke where my daughter comes into my bedroom and I'm high. It's 2 a.m. and I'm really, really high, and I think I'm dying. I wanted to have a phrase. I'm higher than ... right? So I wrote a million of them. And the one I loved the most was I'm higher than senator socks. I've seen senators, oddly enough, get dressed in the locker room. Very long story. And they all pull their socks up to their knees. That's how no senator doesn't have socks to his knees. Just doesn't get a laugh. But I go, maybe that's just part of what I do is I make the joke that I like, that I think. And if it doesn't get the best laugh, it still gets the laugh that I want. And then what happened is I was working it and it wasn't working. And then I just turned into me and I just explained exactly what I just explained to you. And then I got into this whole bit of this like spiral out of it, and which killed. And I went, oh, okay, maybe that point was to get to this. So I don't know if I answered your question. I'm an idiot.
It's interesting, actually, just the way that thoughts kind of line up. Sometimes you have to reverse engineer it to know where you want to go.
I think there's a lot of comics who go, oh, what works good here is something like a Tells bit like this, or a good Bill Burrism, or a good Patrice. And like Patrice was the king of analogies. And I find myself, when I draw an analogy, I literally find myself going, don't go where Patrice would go.
Right.
But I think the real goal is to try to stay as close to what you believe or what makes you giggle.
Would you consider yourself to be more of a storyteller than a just straight joke comedian?
Yes. It's so funny. When I wasn't telling a ton of stories, I called myself a storyteller. And now that all I do is tell stories, I have a hard time at welcoming that, because I feel like some guys write off some comics as storytellers. And so I go, well, no, I'm a comic. But yeah, that's all I do is tell stories. I mean, literally, I tell stories and secrets. That's it.
Stories and secrets. I like that.
I swear to God. Maybe I'll call my special Stories and Secrets.
I love it. I think that's incredibly descriptive and accurate.
I'm telling stuff about my family that definitely may get my dad upset. Like, but not in it, but like just, he'd have to own it. He'd have to be like, yeah, I did spank him, or yeah, I did say that. I have no separation between church and state when it comes to the stage. So who I am on stage is exactly who I am off stage. So what I tell you right now on the phone is what I'd say on stage. And so it can get a little slippery sometimes.
Do you ever get anybody coming back to you going, I can't believe you said that about me?
Yeah. My last special, I woke up one morning and I turned on the TV in my bedroom and my daughter Georgie jumped in the bed. My special happened to be on. And I went, oh my God. I didn't realize my daughters had never seen me do stand-up.
Uh-oh.
I said, hey, it's my special. And she goes, oh, can I watch it? And I was like, well, yeah, a little bit. And the first thing she said was, and it really caught me off guard. She goes, why do you take your shirt off? She didn't even know I performed with a shirt off. And I went, I don't know. She was like, that's so weird. Why would you have a shirt and then take it off? And I go, I don't know, baby. I just don't perform with a shirt on. And then she said, whoa, has Isla seen this? And I was like, my youngest daughter, I go, no, she hasn't. She was like, I would not show it to her dad. And I was like, oh, good. So I had to clear it with this next one. I call my kids idiots.
Uh-oh.
And I had to go by them and go, hey, just so you know, I call you guys morons on stage, like a lot. I call you stupid a lot. Like, are you guys cool with that? And they're like, yeah, we don't care.
Well, I would think as long as you're upfront with them so that it doesn't come back to them through classmates or something like that, you're probably going to be okay.
Well, I think what'll come back to them one day will be when they watch me in college. All their friends are smoking weed and they're getting high. And then someone's like, oh, shit, it's your dad. And they're like, ah. And they all have a sense of humor. And then they see like some sex joke about their mom. And they're like, oh, my God, turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to hear that about their parents.
Oh, yeah. That's worse than walking in on your parents is listening to your dad talk about having sex with your mom.
Oh, God. Have you ever done that? That's like the scariest sight on the planet.
I walked in on my parents one time, me and my sister did, and we were traumatized.
Yeah, you don't recover from that.
No, it's a hard comeback.
Do you ever feel that you have to kind of live up to this expectation that you are, this party animal, that you're the machine?
Yeah, sometimes. Like sometimes it's less with fans than it's more in the industry.
Really?
Like, so, like I'll go into meetings sometimes. Like I went into a meeting one time and the guy, it was, I won't say the network, so she could figure out the guy, but the guy was like, oh, thank God it's you. And I was like, oh yeah, I thought we were going to talk about a show. It was like I scheduled this meeting knowing that we had a party last night and I could have a cocktail with you this morning. And he poured me a tequila at 10 in the morning.
Whoa.
And we drank tequila in his office until noon and then went to lunch. And I went, okay. Like part of you's like, all right, I guess that's my Me Too moment. But where no one takes you serious and you realize you're just an object to somebody. But I think more in the industry, people look at me and they go, this is my night out. This is why I scheduled this meeting. Like, I don't think I've ever had a dinner or a general out, like at a restaurant where people didn't want to get fucking hammered with me. With the fans, it's different. I made it very clear this year that I wasn't doing shots. So I don't have to do any shots this year. But everyone wants to buy me a drink, which is fine because I do enjoy drinking. But for the most part, the thing that people assume is everyone wants to get hammered with me. For the most part, people really just want to talk about the podcast. And they want to talk about Rogan's podcast and Tommy's podcast and Ari's podcast. And they want to hear Joey Diaz's story. And they want to tell me about their weight loss. And they want to tell me about they did Sober October. They just want to share. And I'm a big podcast fan. And like I said, I come at it as a fan. So when people say stuff like, dude, I feel like I know you, I go, yeah, I understand that feeling. Like when I first met Joe, I felt like I knew him very well. To this day, I know Joe much better than he knows me because I listen to his podcast all the time.
Right.
So I know things about him that it becomes problematic. It happens with my friends. I mean, I listen to Ari's podcast. I know stories about Joey that Joey hasn't told me, but he's shared. And then we'll be having coffee and I'll bring it up and go, hey man, it's been very bizarre. It's been an interesting change of the relationship between fans and comedians and comedians and comedians. I mean, Theo Vaughn, I talked to Theo Vaughn the other day and I was talking to him about something that he had said on a podcast. And I was like, I felt like a fanboy. By the way, I've known Theo forever, but I felt like a fanboy and we're both peers, you know?
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing with fans now is that there is this weird relationship that we know a lot about each other.
And I find that fascinating. It's so different. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and, I was into the rock scene and celebrities just seemed so untouchable then. But now it's like you have this immediate connection to people and you can tweet at them or whatever. And all of a sudden you almost have a friendship.
It's gotten to a place where trust me, I've laid in bed thinking I've messed up my career, where I've overshared. And that's my problem is that I have these really outrageous stories and I live a little bit of an outrageous lifestyle sometimes. I found that if I tried to curb the truth and tell you I was someone I wasn't, that I could never hold the line and be like, oh yeah. So I've overshared a lot because I just tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth right now. And this is the truth. And I know when we were about to do Sober October with Rogan, me, Ari, and Tom, when they asked me how much I drank, I wish I had lied. I wish I had lied.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
I wish I had lied and told them, I occasionally drink, but I told them the truth. And that vulnerability, I think, connects with people because I think people go, oh, yeah, I have something I tell. Bro, I can't believe Bert's sharing a secret,
Right.
And that connection, I think it's cool. The weight loss thing, all the stuff we do on the podcast, it connects with people. My wife did a podcast the other day, and it's so crazy. This is so not my wife. We did a podcast. We were talking about the Aziz thing, and out of nowhere, my wife talks about her sexual assault. My wife runs my email for my website, and my wife's getting a ton of emails from women who listen to the podcast going, hey, I didn't realize the same thing happened to me. And I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you.
Wow.
And then my wife's like, my wife's blown away. She's blown away by it. And I'm like, yeah, this is what's been happening for 5 years with me is you tell these secrets, you share these things with people, you allow them. It's an intimate conversation. It's just you, them, and the forklift they're driving. And they're listening to you right in their ear. And then, by the way, I'm speaking out of my ass, but I think the guys who have succeeded in podcasting are the ones that are showing vulnerability. The guys that try to be something that they're not, I think people just kind of, step away from it. And they're like, nah, don't try to sell me something. I want to know. I want something real,
When I can't imagine trying to keep up with just a long string of not necessarily lies, but maybe falsehoods about myself, either podcast or in writing. I mean, who has that kind of energy to try and create this vision of themselves?
I told one lie on a podcast, and it's the reason I never lied on a podcast ever.
What was the lie?
Someone asked me, my dad bought me a watch for my 40th birthday. It's a very, very, very expensive watch. It's a presidential Rolex. I was embarrassed by the gift, but I loved it. And someone asked me about my watch, but in a very how did you get it? And I was afraid to tell them that my dad bought it for me, because I think as soon as I do that, then it gives a perspective of me to people I don't envy. I don't look for. I don't want people to like. I don't want people to think, oh, I'm a rich kid, or my dad's rich, or it's a $50,000 watch. And so I don't know the lie I told, but everyone has said to me, oh, is that the Will Smith watch? And I guess I told people that Will Smith bought it for me. I don't know. I don't remember what I said, but I remember that I did lie in that moment because I was embarrassed that my dad had bought me the watch. And that is the only lie I've ever told on a podcast. And it comes up so fucking much. And it drives me nuts. And I've said on a number of podcasts, I've cleared it up. My dad bought me this watch for my 40th birthday. But still people are like, yo, is that the Will Smith watch? And I don't remember what I said. So I always go, ah.
But people don't forget. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
You don't forget anything. Look, I can tell you stuff. I can tell you jokes Jim Norton told 18 years ago. I can tell you things that happened on Opie and Anthony or Stern or Rogan. I can tell you conversations Rogan's had with people that go back 7 years. Little silly things that he doesn't remember. And that is what podcasting is they go, dude, remember that time that guy was at your house and he was spelling out words and your daughters I was like, what? You just don't remember them. But for that one person, it just registers as something it made them laugh or made them giggle or whatever, So yeah, I try to adhere as much to the truth in sometimes an ugly way. I'm embarrassed of some of the things I've shared on my podcast, but it's easier to just share all your ugly truths than try to hide them. And then people are like, whoa. That's not what you said a month ago,
With so many comedians having podcasts right now, how do you think it's changed comedy overall?
Oh, the dialogue between a fan and an audience, with a comic and audience has changed drastically. I think it's lent itself more to storytelling. And I think there are more storytelling comics than there are joke writers. I think joke writers sometimes struggle on podcasts, straight up set up punch guys struggle on podcasts. I know that, and I say this obviously acknowledging David Tell is my favorite comedian ever.
Definitely.
Ever. But he is a straight up joke guy, and he'll say that. And sometimes on podcasts, you have a hard time getting to know him. I had a podcast scheduled with him at the beginning of this year, and I called Tom Segura and I was like, "Yo, I need your help because if it's just me and Attell, he may just shut down. He doesn't want to let you know who he is. Tosh does not want you to know who he is, not for bad reasons, but just that's not who he is. He got into this to write jokes. He likes the math of it, Dimitri's got an amazing story of his life. Lost his dad when he was young, got married to his high school sweetheart who thought he was a failure and divorced him. She was a doctor and had to start all over, never drank, never did drugs. And in the alt comedy scene, big Greek family who ran a big, Dimitri is fascinating, but man, he doesn't give a shit if you know about that.
It makes it a little bit more difficult on my end because I've spoken with a lot of comedians, and the ones who don't open up, you've got to look for that in, and it can be challenging.
Oh, I just did a podcast with Ron Funches, and Ron is, I think he's more a joke guy for the most part, And it was a great podcast, but it was a struggle where you're like, I'm such an open book, and Ron's not technically.
Right.
A lot of his life, Ron's had a much tougher life than I've ever had, and maybe he doesn't try to celebrate it. Maybe he looks past it and goes, I'm doing really well now. Like one of the best stories he told on the podcast was he'd gotten divorced from his high school sweetheart, married her, they had a kid. Their kid was autistic. Everyone thought he was going to be a failure. And he told this great story about the day that everyone found out he was succeeding. He had gone back to Salem, and he ran into everyone that always thought he was going to be a failure. It just happened that karma worked it out that way. And it was like, oh, good. And then, for an hour and a half podcast, a 2-hour podcast, you get one of those good stories, and you're like, oh, we broke the seal, And I'll even say some of my friends who are amazing podcasters are like, Ari is a tough podcast sometimes. Like, and as open as he is, I think some of those people find themselves unremarkable. Segura finds himself unremarkable. He's a regular guy,
right.
And that's the truth. He's a great joke writer, regular guy. Like, you say stuff, and you got, like, I know him so well. I go, hey, tell me about the time you overdosed. I remember saying that to him on a podcast with Joe, and he was like, what? I was like, what? Tell me about the time you overdosed. And Joe's like, you overdosed? He was like, hold on. Okay, yeah. And he tells the story, and you're like, dude, that's amazing. And I think that's what people fall in love with these people for. Joey's the best. Joey's the greatest. When he doesn't know he's being funny is when he's the funniest.
Absolutely. Oh, I heard him tell this story about his mother's friend. I think it was on This Is Not Happening. And it was so gripping, and you don't want to miss a word.
He said something to me one time. I have a big dog. I have a bull mastiff. She's like 140 pounds. And she came in the man cave. We're doing a podcast. And you can see Joey's kind of like, get your dog out of here. You kind of look on his face. And I said, and I had not realized that about him. I go, Joey, do you not like dogs? He goes, let me tell you something. When I first moved to this country, my first week, I got attacked by 6 dogs.
Oh, God.
I go, you serious? He goes, let me tell you something, Bert Kreischer. He goes, the last dog walked past me and then realized who I was, turned around and bit me. He is made for podcasting. I always say that Joey's social media is podcasting. It's like some people I'm pretty good at Instagram because I like editing. I like video. I like shooting stuff. I think that basically I can attribute that to Travel Channel. I love podcasting. I think podcasting is a big medium of mine that I enjoy. But man, Joey Diaz, his medium is podcasting. You put him on a podcast and he can tell you any story. You can literally start with nothing and he can come up with something. He's my favorite human being alive.
You mentioned the mathematics of comedy. What exactly does that mean?
I mean, I think there's very simple math about it. I think a lot of times people say, everything, the funnies are in 3s or 7s, or for me, it's more like, this is going to sound super highfalutin when it shouldn't. But for me, it's a lot more like Good Will Hunting. Like when you watch Good Will Hunting, you go, I don't know what he's drawing on the chalkboard, but I understand that it's something smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for comedy, I don't really know the equation I'm drawing, but I do know that it's something smart. When it works, it's something smart. For instance, storytelling. And by the way, I'm always discovering this brand new, at times. I didn't realize until like very recently, like sometimes it's really good when you have a story and they know it's over. So you got to plant seeds in the early in the harvest so that you can harvest them at the end of the story. So you find yourself almost like, I guess the closest mathematical equation would be to like a haiku. Your bit or your story's got to rhythmically play out in this is way too above my pay grade, but rhythmically play out into a place where people recognize its pacing without knowing the pacing has been set. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And what you reminded me of is from Dave Chappelle's special, the kicker and the pussy joke.
That is my favorite fucking joke ever. That is my favorite fucking joke ever. I will say that's the greatest joke ever written. That is exactly what I'm talking about. In doing my special, I was looking for a closer for this joke I'm doing. And someone said, can you do what Dave Chappelle did? And I go, no, he's already done it. You can't. That's not how it works. that math where you go, oh, that motherfucker. How did he do that to me?
Right.
Oh, I'll give you an example in my career. I did the Machine story. Is probably the story I'm best known for. It ended for 2 years. It ended with, so I understand you're the Machine. That's how it ended. And I never liked it. It always felt empty. You can tell as a comic when it feels empty, and you can tell when it feels good. And it just felt empty, but people applauded, and people liked it, and people loved the story. It's a good story. And then one day, I realized that if Igor said to the girl, when he spit vodka in her eyes and he shut the door and he said, to me, fuck that bitch, this is Russia. If I said at the very end of the story, then everyone would know the story's over. And I did it that first time, and I went, all right, the story's done. I'm done with the story. I figured this story out. It's like a Rubik's Cube. It's like a Sudoku. Like you go, I figured it out. The math is over. It all equates. It all adds up. All of the setups lead to a punch. And by the way, when I say this, and now I'm really speaking out of my ass, you can get really nifty too. You can almost get too nifty. And you can see, and I think that's what people veered from in alternative comedy was the niftiness of comedy, of like people who would, like that was the big thing in the 80s. Everything had to have a tag. Everything had to have a callback.
Right.
And I run the risk sometimes of being too nifty, but I think we're so far away from traditional comedy these days that you can't hurt yourself. You can might as well throw a callback in. You know, that callback that Chappelle did, genius because it was a callback you didn't see coming.
Exactly.
It was a throwback to old school comedy of how comedy was done. Oh, I loved that when he said so kicked her in the pussy. Ah, I'm dope. Oh fuck! I was in West Palm. That's when you know a joke's good, but you can tell you where you heard it. I was in West Palm at a restaurant eating salmon, and he said that, and I laughed out loud, and I was like, I want to order a cocktail right now. I'm so happy.
Yes, I know. It changes everything.
I'll tell you, the only thing better than hearing a joke like that is figuring out a joke like that.
Well, yeah, and that's the art.
Yeah. Oh, when you get one like that, like I have this joke that I'm doing in my next special where it just was an accident. It's just a happy accident. And I did it the first time I did it in Calgary. It got an applause break. And I said to the kid that I was working with, I go, why do you think they applauded? And he goes, dude, are you kidding me? Because it was over. You did it. And this kid had been doing comedy maybe 4 years. He was like, that's a great joke. And I was like, and now the applause break stops. I'm not getting it anymore. And I got to figure out how I told it the first time. That's the math.
Do you have that problem? You know, if you're working a joke out, you know, on stage, does it ever just escape you the next day?
Yeah, a lot. You know, I think a lot of comics will tell you things that they've heard about comedy and go, that's how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to record every set. You're supposed to watch every recording. You're supposed to go through, take notes. You're supposed to sit and write for an hour every day. And then there are other comics like that don't do that. And I definitely record when I'm getting ready for a special. I'm recording every set. But for the most part, you just got to get it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it. You got to feel the energy of the joke. And you can rewatch yourself telling it. But if you don't have that energy, if you don't feel it during the moment, if it's not repetitive and rote to you, then I don't feel like you can do it its justice. So for me right now, there's like 2 jokes I have where they killed the first time and they're really close to getting back to that. And it just is doing it over and over again. I have video of me doing it right, but even watching it, if you're not in the moment doing it, you know, and that's my process. I write on stage and I need to do it. I need to do it like 100 times the right way for the special. I can watch all I want, but it doesn't matter. For me, the video is for me going back and I can pull out, I can see laziness when I watch it. I can see laziness in my writing and I go, okay, let's get rid of that. Let's write something new for that. But yeah, I've got to say it. I've got to say it 100 times. I've got to say it over 100 times. And so that's right now I'm just on the road every fucking night practically until this special so that I can get it right.
So what's the plan with the special? You're recording it in February?
February 24th, we shoot in Philly at the Troc. 2 shows, maybe 4 shows. I don't know. It depends what the budget allows. And then, officially we have a buyer, or unofficially we have a buyer, but we haven't closed the deal. So I'd be hesitant to say it's the buyer that everyone wants to be with. So, but that's unofficial. But
I suspect I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm only hesitant because deals always fall apart. That happens. And if they do, I'll just do the show and just sell tickets to the show and not shoot a special.
Right. You still have a show.
As of now, there's an offer. I think we've accepted it. We're moving forward. The production company is, we're shooting it. I mean, I say that skeptically only because I'm me, but we're shooting a special on the 24th.
What about Something's Burning?
That's Bill Burr. Bill Burr.
Ah, all right.
He's the best. Bill and Al Madrigal started a company called All Things Comedy. We were originally a podcasting company, and then we turned into a media company. And Bill called a meeting where the heads of the board. The heads of the board, by the way, are just 5 comics: me, Ari, Tom, Dave, Anthony, Al, and Bill. And so we're just the guys with the biggest podcast on the network.
That makes it easy.
And Bill's like, very candidly, Bill's like, bro, I'm hemorrhaging fucking money in this company. Let's shoot something. And I go, I have this idea. I've always wanted to do a cooking show called Something's Burning. And this is the beauty of Bill Burr. He goes, done. We're shooting it next week. Me and Tommy. And he books it. He's like, Tom, you're in? And Tom's like, yeah. And I go, Bill, I'm not a really good cook. And he goes, that's why it's called Something's Burning. It's great. We'll just shoot it. Let's do it. And he just organized it. And we shot it. And it got much more traction than we ever thought it would get. I mean, and my idea, it was obvious it was my idea, but my idea when we shot it was I want it to be like a podcast. I want it to be a hang. I want it to be comics. I want to make them food. I want to just bullshit, have some wine, have some booze.
Burn the hair off your arms,
Burn the hair off my arms. And I'm not a great cook. And, and I think part of it is that Tom was laughing so hard when I pitched it. He was like, Bill, you clearly haven't seen Bert cook. And Bill's like, no, why? And he's like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And throughout the entire thing, I'm touching my nose. I'm touching my nose. Bill cuts himself. I almost burned myself. And it just is, it's I think where I see media going is just make it, just no notes. It may not be the best thing in the world. Clearly, I've been on traditional television for 7 years straight. And I had a lot of producers hit me up and be like, yo, you could have made that so much better. And I'm like, and then one of them, this guy, Dan Adler, is one of my really close friends. He created Bert the Conqueror and Man vs. Food. He was like, dude, I had so many notes, but I'm so glad you didn't address any of them because it forced me to just listen to you guys. It was like, I wanted close-ups. I wanted cutaways. I wanted info facts. I wanted beats. But just the fact that you 3 were hanging out made it so much better. And so we did it, and we did it as a one-off. I don't think we ever thought about doing it as a season or a series. And now people are hitting us up and they want to do it. And they're like, hey, can we be on Something's Burning? And by the way, I really, honestly, when we came up with it, I think we thought it would always be me, Tom, and Bill. And now other people want to do it. And we're like, well, shit, I don't mind cooking with other people and hanging out with comics. I love comics. Yeah. So we'll see. I think we got an episode I think we're going to do with Fighter and the Kid. Brian Callen and Brennan Schaub are going to do an episode. I think my dad's going to fly out and do an episode with Joey Diaz.
Oh, wow.
And
that's fun.
we got one coming out with the Sklar brothers. And so it's one of those things now, I think, is that if it's fun, let's do it. And the second it stops being fun, let's stop.
That's perfect. I mean, that's how you keep it fun and real, and that's why people enjoy it so much.
It's The Office. The Office format. When Ricky Gervais did The Office, he was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for this many times, and then it's over. And I remember being like, hell yeah, that's what you do. Just make it until it's not fun. If it's not fun anymore, stop doing it. Just make your next thing. I'll watch your next thing. I'll watch everything Ricky Gervais does because I trust him. So
exactly.
We'll make a few. Maybe we'll get some sponsors. Hey, if we don't make money, I don't really care at all. My whole thing right now, in my whole MO, is put out free content for people to enjoy and come out and see me live. That's it. So number one thing people say to me at the end of the show, dude, thank you for all the free content. They all say that. We're talking, I do a meet and greet after the show. Within 2 shows, I probably shake 400 people's hands. And half of them are saying, thank you for the free content.
Wow.
And so why not? Yeah, but, you know, you're not leaving money on the table.
No, because it comes around. I mean, it's this whole circle experience where you get the benefit and they get the benefit. And I love media today because it is so connected to everybody.
Oh, of course. I mean, think about it. When Rogan started his podcast, it was him, Segura, and Red Band with snowflakes trickling down the thing, and there was no money to be had. He was doing advertisements for Fleshlight to try to make money.
Right.
But he didn't need the money. He was just doing it because he was like, why not deficit fund this a little bit and buy new equipment, buy better equipment. Mm-hmm. And then now you look where he is. So part of me, and I'm doing this we're doing a sitcom in March with my buddies at Jax Media, and we're doing it on the podcast format. We're like, free content. Let's shoot a sitcom. Let's pay for it. Let's figure it out. We can figure out advertisers. Advertisers will show up. Maybe we make it. Advertisers show up. Maybe we go out to advertisers first. Maybe we get their money first. But let's go out and make free content. Make something we really want to make. Turn it into a podcast form. You know, make it so it's audio friendly, so you can listen to it almost like Night Vale or Welcome to Night Vale.
Sure. And
do a post show, do a pre-show, do a table read. Like really do something different, but make it free. We don't need the money. We love doing the art. Like writing a script is fun as shit. And then when it's not fun anymore, we'll stop. You know?
What's the name of the show?
I can't tell you that.
You can't tell me that? Oh, come on.
Yeah. Trust me when I say it is. I've been in development for about, maybe 5 years, just developing with networks and with production companies for a sitcom. And then finally, I just was like, I am not enjoying this process. And so I just wrote a script. It's a little out there. And I gave it to my buddy over at Jax, my buddy I've grown up with. I gave it to him. He liked it. And one night we were drunk in my man cave. I had my podcasting equipment up, and he was like, so this podcast is like, it's legit, right? Like he's traditional media. He did Inside Amy Schumer. He does Broad City. He does Search Party. He did Louie. He's done everything. He produced Chris Rock's special. He produced Amy's special. Like he's a legit media guy. Like he makes television shows. That's what he does.
Right.
And just sold his company to Brian Glazer. And I said, it's great. And he's like, you think you'll ever any interest in television? And I said, the problem I have with television is they can't pay me enough to stop doing my podcast. I make, more money on my podcast. And he was like, wait, how much do you make on your podcast? And I told him, and he was like, wait, how do you make money on your podcast? And we broke it down, and then drunk, me and him were like, why don't we do a sitcom and just make it like a podcast? You look at Rogan's podcast, that's basically real time. You see it on YouTube, it's real time.
Oh, yeah.
With Bill Maher, So why wouldn't you do that for other things? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you script it? Why wouldn't you script it and shoot it? And he's like, it's so cheap to make television. Let's do it. And so I sent him the script. He liked it. And we're going to try to do some different things with it. But that's the beauty of, the way media is happening right now is you can fail and people are cool with it. They're like, yeah, it didn't work that time. I'll be here next time.
Right. It gives you that freedom. I mean, it's incredibly liberating.
It's incredibly liberating. And part of me feels like I wish I had done this younger.
Really?
Yeah, because a lot of headaches in this business would have been avoided. A lot of insecurity in this business would have been avoided. I would have, as Corolla says, I would have sailed my own pirate ship.
Also, you've had that experience, and I think that enables you to better enjoy what you're doing now because you don't have to worry so much.
Yes. I have mixed emotions about Travel Channel, my experience there. It was the greatest job in the world. It was fantastic. It gave me so much freedom and security in my life, financially, emotionally. I mean, it just was really a great experience. But then I look and I go, wow, I did kind of was on like a timeout for 7 years where I didn't really focus on stand-up the way I should have. I didn't explore different media the way that some of my friends did. I didn't really get into podcasting. I got into podcasting a little bit late to the game. And so it's a torn feeling. Obviously, I wouldn't change anything. But in the end, I feel like it gave me like a PhD in media, like where I go, all right, I know how to make stuff. I know how to shoot stuff. I know what makes stuff good and what makes stuff bad. Some of my friends don't. And I know how to direct. A friend of mine just sold a pilot, and I was like, hey, let me direct it for you. It was a single camera hosted with 3 people. I was like, let me direct it. I can definitely direct it for you, and I can make sure I can get the best out of you. So I feel like I got a PhD in television and media. I'm not dead yet, so I guess I have some time, you know?
I'd say you have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Your wife is starting a podcast as well.
Well, yeah, you can hear my chickens in the back.
Your chickens are insane.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
I guess laying an egg.
What did David Tell say? What was it about being in a cargo hold or something?
He goes, I feel like I'm in a Guatemalan village.
That's it.
David Tell's the best. Hey, guys, shut up. So Leanne, and I, so once again, it's like I feel like part of this business is full disclosure, but we renovated our house. We put in a pool. And Leanne felt very fulfilled while we were doing that. And then she was having this kind of these thoughts of like, what do I do next? What am I going to do for myself? Like, what do I do when the girls are up and running? We did a podcast with this guy, Jair Rodriguez. And he said in the podcast, he's a behavioral assessor. So you take a test and then he tells you what's wrong with you. You try to find the trauma in your kid as a kid. It's really an interesting podcast. But in it, he said to Leanne, what's wrong with you is you've always given everything to everyone else in your life. There will come a time in your life when you go, what have I done for myself? And she broke down crying and was like, oh my God, what have I done for myself? And I think it just opened up something for her that allowed her to feel. And he also told me how I should behave around her and, help support her. And so for the next month, and I think it's still leading into it, I think we're still doing it. We just tried to figure out what would make her happy? What would be her purpose in life? She really enjoyed doing the reads with me. And I think she was timid. She was like, I want to do a podcast. I'm all aboard. I'm like, hell yeah, do a podcast. Yeah. I go, do a podcast. And she's like, what if it sucks? I go, it's going to suck, babe. Like, you're not Howard Stern. It's going to suck. But keep doing it and it'll suck less and less every week. Like, mine sucked horrifically when I started. And by the way, you could argue it still sucks. But for some reason, people are cool with the suckery I bring every week and they like it and they tune in. And I go, just keep doing it. I go, look, we got the equipment in here. It'll give you a purpose. It'll give you something that you feel positive about. And I go, if you don't like it, just don't do it. So she did 3 episodes and loved it. And what's crazy is she just brings in her friends, and they do it together and they love it. And they get together and they talk about stuff the same way me and Tom and Ari do and Joe.
Sure.
And Joey, they get excited about podcasting and they want to, save it for the podcast. And you're like, are you serious right now? It's going to start the first week in February and it's called Wife of the Party. And I'll be on it, I'm sure. I wouldn't be shocked if Push was on it or Tom was on it. Anyone that's friends with her, and she just her goal in it is to, one of the things that I think has resonated with her from my podcast is that based on podcasting, my life has got exponentially healthier. Like it's blossomed, I think. Mm-hmm. I've lost weight. I stopped drinking for a month. My drinking's curbed off a great deal. And I think she watched that and she was like, I want to just make my life better. So right now she's doing the 21-day fix on Beachbody, who's a sponsor of my podcast. Right. And she's talking about it on her podcast and she's going to share it on her podcast and share her experience. And it's been great. It hadn't even come out yet. She's done 3 episodes and she is bubbling. So I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Have fun. That's all that life's about. Have fun. Be happy.
Well, Bert, I have to really thank you so much for your time and in being on my podcast. I was looking forward to this so much, and I've had a blast talking to you.
You are a great interviewer. Thank you so much.
Well, that is awfully nice of you to say. Thank you.
I will say this. having just finished the podcast with this afternoon and realizing my shortcomings as an interviewer, I was like, I got on your podcast and I was like, holy crap, you're fucking amazing.
I love hearing that. That coming from you, that's awesome. Thank you.
No, it flew. I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes. So you're in Chicago?
I am. I'm in Chicago.
Well, we got to do a podcast. We got to do my podcast when I come out to Chicago.
I would love that. When are you coming to Chicago?
Probably this summer. So, yeah, I'll hit you up.
That would be fantastic. I'd love it.
No, thank you very much. This has been a fucking treat.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Take care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Y'all, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Unwritable Rant podcast. Bert has shows coming up on February 9 in Indianapolis, February 15th in Charlotte, North Carolina, and February 22 in Philadelphia. If you want to learn more about Bert or catch episodes of the Bertcast, just head on over to bertbertbert.com. And as for me, if you are so inclined, you can check out back episodes of the Unwritable Rant podcast at theunwritablerant.com. So I hope you all have a great week. I'll be back next Sunday with some more bourbon-soaked stories. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablerant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you as pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton relay. Hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweet as taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.